Hello! So, first things first, I need to apologise for my absence from YouTube for the last couple of weeks. As you can probably hear from my voice, I've not been very well at all. I'm still suffering from it now, so if I explode into coughing at any point during this video, I apologise in advance. I have a pint of water at the ready alongside me, and we'll just see how we get on along the way. So, a couple of weeks ago, or longer than that ago, maybe a month ago, Inibuilds reached out to me, or their marketing arm reached out to me, and told me they were working on a new aircraft, and they have invited me, along with lots of other content creators who are privileged enough to be given this opportunity, to take an early look at the aircraft before it is released. So over the past few days, we've been given access to this phenomenal aircraft in the simulator. And it's not finished yet. This is not the finished article. There has been new releases every day of this aircraft with pages and pages of changes and fixes and improvements on what is already, I think I could quite confidently say, the most impressive simulated aircraft I have ever seen in any simulator anywhere. It really is that good. So I've put it on the ground here at Stansted Airport in the UK, and we're going to go and have a look around it with the drone camera, and then we'll go and take it for a fly. So I have no idea, this may crash during flight. It is not supposed to work with the pre-Sim Update 1 version of Flight Simulator 2024. So I'm going to be quite careful in what I show you in terms of what I know will work, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, so let's go and have a look around it on the ground. So I'm going to get the drone camera up and running and get it moving. And we're going to have a swoop around the whole plane first. So just the level of detail and the quality of the modelling of this aircraft are just next level. So it looks quite simple, doesn't it, up close? Or sorry, from that sort of distance. But as you get closer, you realise what you're actually dealing with here. So we'll come back to look at some of the legs later on. We will speed up the drone camera, and we'll get further away to get some longer distance shots. So we've got the default factory Inibuilds livery on the aircraft. If you go into the Ini Manager application, there are many free liveries available at launch with the aircraft. The aircraft isn't out yet, obviously, and I'm not quite sure when it will be released at the time of this recording, and I am under a non-disclosure agreement at the time I'm recording this, so I haven't been able to show anybody this aeroplane yet. So this video will have sat on my hard drive or on YouTube unlisted until such point as Inibuilds say that I'm allowed to share it. But yeah, having even at this point, and this is obviously way before the launch has happened, the number of liveries is staggering in the Ini Manager, and they're all real-world liveries. So if you've got a favourite carrier that flies the A350, there's a good chance that you'll be able to get your exact aircraft livery that you want. So as you can see, looking around the aircraft, the level of modelling is crazy, and the resolution of the textures. You know, when you come up close to any of the stickers, it's absolutely stunning. So, and the level of, the attention to detail has staggered me. It really has. More so than any aircraft I've seen before. Look, so inside the engines, labels on the struts, and it's very obvious the struts are made of carbon composites. It's mad, isn't it? There isn't a single place you can look at this aircraft and think there's a bit of a shortcut there. It's a stunning achievement, just in terms of the modelling and the texture work, the material modelling. It's just amazing. You know, you can see, look, the differences in the reflectivity of different coloured paints even, and the different metals. And you know, the complexity model, even in a static engine that's not even spinning yet. And yeah, looking at this, look, The textures are just incredible. Okay, I'm going to cough. I know I am. I apologise for this. Excuse me. Right, so let's go and fly in through the window of... So just before we fly in, again, look at the resolution. Oh, but actually before we go inside the aircraft and start nosing around, I know people like to see the undercarriage, to see the level of modelling going on, and this really does take it to a whole new level again over what we've ever seen before. So it's not just the tarnish and the weathering and the wear and tear, it's the modelling of the tiny details, and it's the stickers. It's, again, stickers adhering to curves that look like they're stuck on, and it's all animated. Even as far as the tyres bulging, you don't see it so much on the nose wheel, you certainly do on the main undercarriage trucks. So obviously this is a new feature of Flight Sim 2024, but you can see the deformed tyres where the weight is on them, which I just think is incredible. And again, as we come in over the pipework and having a look around the aircraft and looking up into the undercarriage bay, it's just amazing. I mean, I have never seen anything, not to this level of detail before, but this level of finish is just stunning. I mean, I have no doubt this could be used for training, for ground crew, and for, you know, technicians. It really does appear to be that accurate. It's a bit of a masterpiece. And of course, everything animates. So we promised to go and have a look around the airplane, didn't we? So let's go and fly out through the middle of the engine, apparently, and we'll come in through the window of the cabin up here, if I can aim the drone camera accurately enough. So you can suddenly see the detail doesn't stop outside. Every corner of the interior, every part of the interior has been modelled to the same level of detail, same resolution. It's astounding. It really is. So if we fly through the curtain here and we're into the posh seats at the front of the aircraft, obviously, so you can see all of the seats are here with their screens. Just the material modelling going on here is stunning as well. I can't see many polygons anywhere. It's very, very smoothly done. So if we come in through the next curtain and into the next area, so there's a galley here, and you can see, again, the level of detail going on is just nuts. And the resolution of everything. Now, I'm not surprised that they seem to have made barcodes that aren't real, because I imagine people would try to scan them. But it's still impressive, isn't it? And look, all the mechanisms on the door, it all animates, by the way, when you open the doors. It's amazing to watch. And you can go in the bathrooms. Obviously on the drone camera I can't activate the door, but you can unfold it. And then when you come in, again, accurately modelled, you can press the flushes, they make noises. And we come further down the cabin and we're into the business class seats, and then we go further again and we're into standard class. It's a huge cabin, isn't it? 9 seats wide. And again, all the screens are modelled on the back of the seats. The material modelling is very, very good. So when you come down and looking closely, like I said, there is not a stone left unturned throughout the whole aircraft. It's absolute craziness. So then we come down to the rear of the cabin, more toilets, and then back got the next level of economy seats, and then let's come in through the gap over the top of the curtain and into the rear galley. It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. So, we've had a good look around the cabin. Let's go and fly back through the cabin. So this is the rear passenger cabin. Then the center one. Then you got business. And then you got first class. And then if we come into the, I'm going to slow down here. It's a bit of a corner to navigate here. And then we can come into the flight deck again. And again, okay, this is your first chance to see the flight deck, which again is absolutely stunning. So compound curves everywhere. Can't see any polygons anywhere. And we can go look at some of these structures. Don't worry, we are going to get to the meat end of the aircraft soon. Now, the placement of the pilot is obviously an issue at the moment when you're in drone camera, so we're not going to worry too much about that. We're not going to focus on that, but we are going to start looking at things like the quality of the rendering of the instruments, which is just amazing. It looks photographic wherever you look. So, lots of screens. We'll obviously come back and look at this properly once we're in the pilot eye view. So you've got the FGCP there, and if you come overhead, all of the panels overhead, again, similar level of quality. The closer you get, the more impressive it gets. You know, it just looks photographic everywhere. And the bizarre thing is, the simulator throws it around at a frightening rate of knots as well. It's very smooth. You see what I mean? Look, it doesn't matter how close you get, it still is impressive. Okay, so we've had our look around with the drone camera. I'm going to press Shift and X, which puts us back into a normal kind of pilot view. If I move us backwards using the keyboard commands, you can see now we have lots of screens in this aircraft. So it's a bit of a beast to fly. And I've had to work my way through starting it up without the official documentation. So I've guessed at some things. So I am going to show you a demonstration following a functional checklist that I've written myself, and it may be wrong. So I'm going to do my best and walk you through what I have learnt so far and take you through getting the airplane ready for a flight. Okay. So first things first, then we're going to press Shift and Space to bring ourselves over to the pilot position, and we can guide our view around. Notice how smooth it is? We can guide ourselves around the cockpit with the normal controls. Okay, so I'm going to start following my own checklist at this point to get the airplane ready for flight. So I'm going to simulate planning and flying a flight that I've done many times before, which is from Stansted up to Edinburgh. I have no guarantees that we'll get to Edinburgh in one piece, because I have had the pre-release version of the aircraft crash on me several times. But like I said, this aircraft was designed for Sim Update 1, which is in beta. I have not got Sim Update 1 installed. But based on past experience, I know I can get you nearly all of the way through the flight. So I'm going to show you nearly all of it. And if fortune smiles on us, we will land. Okay, where do we start then? We press Shift and 4 to go overhead, and we turn on all of the battery switches. And you will see fault flicker across all of them, and then they will stabilize out after a few seconds. And there they go. If we have external power available, we can enable it. And you will hear the aircraft coming to life around us. So if I press Shift and Space to come back down again, you will see the various screens around the aircraft are booting up. So while we're waiting for the screens to boot up, actually I'll wait here because it's nice to see things coming on with delays and sequences happening, and so you know the booting up of systems is simulated nicely. So Shift and 4 takes us back overhead. we're just going to go and do a few bits and pieces before we really focus down onto what we want to look at. So strobe is already on auto. Nav and logo is already on 1, that's fine. So we're going to go and put the master switch on for the APU and then start the APU. Okay, and I'm just reading my own checklist here to make sure I don't miss anything. So crew supply goes to on, and we can go and turn the ADIRS switches to nav. Okay, so down in the cockpit we can go and have a nose around now. We don't really have to rush anymore. So the heart of the aircraft that would have been in the tablet in other aircraft is built into the cockpit in this one. You've got this flight operations menu, and it appears on both sides of the aircraft. So within here, if you drop down the EFB menu, there is a menu which gives you this homepage, and within here there's options. So if you come into options, there is an absolute stack of things you can change about its behavior. The obvious thing I've changed immediately to make our life easy for demonstration purposes, if I've sped up the IRS alignment and made it instant. If we go down and have a look, you can see this is where you can do your throttle calibration. I've already done mine. So if I go and have a look at the throttles and I move my Airbus throttles, you can see they're hitting the detents perfectly, as you'd expect they should, and I can go to reverse easily as well on axis. Okay. Another thing that you'll be looking for is third-party configuration. So I've put in my SimBrief information, which will allow me to pull a flight plan over the internet into the aircraft, which I'll be showing you. I'm not going to show Navigraph. You need this Sim Update 1 Beta or Sim Update 1 when it arrives for that to work properly. So we'll be going without Navigraph today. Okay, so obviously there's tons of stuff you can configure about the loadout of the aircraft to make it just so. So we've got lots of equipment options, we've got lots of behavior options around the aircraft about how it looks, how it works, what hardware it has on board, you know, how it behaves, what language it's using, what volumes you can have. There's a ton of stuff you can change. So once you've done that, the first thing you're going to do is, I'm just reading my own notes now, is go to the Flight Ops menu, which is this one, and then go to Flight Ops STS, and we're going to do a SimBrief import, which will fetch my flight details from SimBrief, so from Stansted over to Edinburgh. Okay, then we can go to the load sheet page, and on the load sheet page at the top right we can do a SimBrief import, which will go and fetch the numbers, and then we can set the 0 fuel weight, and we can set the fuel, and it does that really quickly for us. Whether that will stay like that or whether they will simulate things taking time in the future, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see with that. So Takeoff performance page, we can go in here and we can select sync SimBrief to go and fetch the numbers. Then we can say sync the weather to fetch that data and click on compute, and then we can send that to the FMS. So then we are going to press Shift and 5 to come further down the aircraft, and you'll see the FMS, Flight Management System, or what we would have called the MCDU in the past. So if you scroll down, you are going to need the keyboard here, and potentially the roller as well. We'll get to that, because the mouse control doesn't operate absolutely everything in this display. Sorry for stumbling over words. So first thing we're going to do is clear out any messages that have already come down the pipe to us, and we're going to go and press Init to start beginning to bring our flight to life. We're going to go to the top right of the Init page and do a company flight plan request. So we click on it and it simulates it taking a while to go and fetch the data, and when it completes we will be able to populate the screen with the information. So we go received company flight plan, so we can drop it down and we can insert, and that's filled the screen up with information. Okay, notice we have another message just come in there, so we can clear that out as well. So the first thing you'll notice on this screen is there's loads of buttons here to shortcut your route around doing the rest of the jobs. So we can do a company wind request as well. And we can then go for departures. We know IRS is working because it's already aligned. We can see that because we've got navigation display working, by the way. Notice you get this wonderful profile display as well in the A350. Anyway, if we go to departure, we can tell it how we're leaving Stansted. So let's go and have a look at our Simbury flight plan. We want the Utava 1R out of runway 22. So runway 22, SID is going to be now. Notice it's going to be off the end of here, and we can't scroll this using this pointer. So we have to use what the real crew would do, which is while we have got this dropped down, we can roll the roller to get down to the bottom end of the list. So UTAV 1R, press enter, and then we can select temporary flight plan. So that will display it on the flight plan page, but it hasn't actually inserted it yet. Okay, so you've got a modified flight plan at this point. So we can insert the temporary flight plan and it becomes the real one. Okay, so then we can go back to init and we can go and look at fuel and load. And this is where there's a little bit of manual work required here. I don't know if the release version of this will simplify this at all, but I kind of quite like that we have to do some work here ourselves. So what we're going to do is go and look up these numbers on the tablet, or not on the tablet, on the menu screen over here. So we're going to go to the load sheet page. So the first number we need is the 0 fuel weight. So we've got 0 fuel weight here. We want it in tons, so it'll be 189.5. Okay, so notice I said you're going to need this keypad. So click in here, then 189.5, and then press enter, and that's populated it. So 0 fuel weight center of gravity is next. So if you look over here, you'll see it's down here. It's 29.98. So 29.9 is good enough for us. So click in here. 29.9. I know we should have rounded up really. And then we want block fuel. So if we look across at the fuel calculations, where are we looking? So here's our load sheet. Fuel load, here we go. 13.4 tons of fuel, which is nothing for this aircraft. This is a very short route that it would never fly in reality. So we have to select block first. 13.4. Enter. So you'll be reassured I'm learning still. I've operated this aircraft a couple of times as I've been learning it. I'm still learning the same as you will. So passenger numbers. We've got 302 out of a possible 387 passengers. So we'll go click in here. 302. Press enter. And we have filled in all of the mandatory things on that page. So we can come back to, we can either press return, which will come back to here, or we could have just pressed init again. So takeoff performance, we can come into here, and again, remember when we did this in the aircraft, sorry, in the information, in the calculator, we sent it to the FMS, that gave us these numbers, so we were then able to click that button, which populated it really quickly for us. The alternate would have been for us to read off the numbers from the takeoff performance calculator from over here and key them in. But there's a nice little button there that helps you do that. There's also the option of doing a company takeoff request, which works very similarly to fetching the flight plan, but it doesn't appear to populate these numbers, so I'm not sure quite what that does. I can show you it. So we can say we're going to do a takeoff, toga takeoff, flaps 1. We can send the takeoff request. Again, without documentation, it's difficult to know what this is actually doing, or what data, what difference it makes. So we can say received takeoff data. There's the received takeoff, and we can insert that into the aircraft, and it does whatever it does. Okay. So then we can clear the information out again, and we're carrying on down. So we did the departure on the flight plan. If we go and look at the flight plan, by the way, so there's our flight plan. We did the departure. We didn't do the approach into Edinburgh, which you normally wouldn't do until you're in the air anyway, but we're going to go and fill this in. So go to Edinburgh, and let's go and check our flight plan in SimBrief. So runway 24 and the INP1E standard terminal arrival route. So runway 24, the ILS into 24, and the INP1E standard terminal arrival route. So insert that in. Again, this is a temporary change until we say insert the temporary change. So that's made it happen. And you can see an animation suddenly happen there. And the line has gone solid on the route. And we've got a profile that's been calculated, look, for the climb out. It takes it a few seconds to do all these things, but it's incredible to see it working everything out. There's new bits of symbology I don't quite understand yet, like this square bracket that appears ahead of the aircraft on the route. So yeah, there's a lot to learn. Okay, so having got that far, we've got the flight plan into the aircraft. We've got the various pages filled up on the performance side with all the information. So shift and space brings us back over to the aircraft. We can press comma as a shortcut. Now I've turned the weather off because the reason I turned the weather off for the moment is it was spinning the fan blades, which meant you couldn't see into the engines, and I wanted to show you that detail earlier. So notice we've got the truck there with the umbilical for the external power. It's very cool, isn't it? It's a lovely looking aeroplane. Anyway, so yeah, just look how busy this flight deck is. It's huge, isn't it? So we are going to go over now with Shift and 1 to what we would have called the FGCP in the past. I don't know if it's still called that in the A350. So there's lots for me to learn along the way as well. You'll notice you've got hyphens through the speed and the heading. So in the A350 or in the FGCP in the A350, hyphens basically mean it's in managed mode, so the knobs have been pushed towards the aircraft, and you can see that it's got altitude and nav over here at the moment. So if we go and set this up for going to 34,000 feet, I think let's just double check that. Oh, it's 36,000 feet. So we're climbing to 36,000 feet. That's our initial target altitude. So if we press the top of the altitude button, which is pushing it towards the aircraft, you can see it's got climb mode, and then you've got nav mode, which means basically it's going to get there under its own, following the flight plan. So if we come over to the pilot side so you can see this. So the only reason I'm focusing on this is the symbology is different than the A320 family. So you can't rely on dots appearing over here. Hyphens basically mean managed mode. Yeah, there's no dots. So if we select the bottom half of the knobs, which pulls them towards us, that's selected mode. So we'll do it with the speed. And yeah, it's not so obvious with the speed at the moment, obviously because the engines aren't running or anything, but we can do it with the heading. So if we go to selected heading, you can see suddenly it's gone heading mode. And if we push it forwards again, it's gone back to nav mode. Yeah, so you always, and this always should have been true, you will always be using the top of the primary flight display to know what mode the autopilot is operating in. Okay. Okay, so we don't need to focus too much on any of the rest of that. We're going to leave everything on managed mode and see how the aeroplane gets on. So then we're going to go to the overhead panel. We're going to go and put the seatbelt signs on or up. For some reason the mouse wheel is reversed on many of these switches. I'm sure there's some logic to that from the developers, but maybe that might change, I don't know. And then in the electric section, we're going to turn the external power off now, because obviously the APU was up and running some time ago, because I'm going so slowly at doing this, because I'm explaining things as I go, or explaining what I understand so far. Okay, so we're now ready to push back. So what we can do is, in the aircraft, we can go to the ground section and we can remove the chocks and the GPU from the aircraft, and we can say start pushing backwards. So that will cause the tractor to approach the aeroplane, and we just wait for it to attach itself. I'm going to remove the parking brake as well. So if we go and jump inside, now we know we want the tail to go to the right. So as soon as we start moving, I'm going to click the right button, because the simulator, before Sim Update 1, I don't know if this is going to change. Yeah, look, it's going the wrong way. So we've just told it to go right. So I think by default the simulator will take us out to about 45 degrees, and then the tractor will release us. So obviously in the real world we would be starting the engines at that point. I'm going to wait until the tractor's done its job before we jump in and start firing the engines up, which will be a very, very familiar procedure to you if you're used to flying the A320 family. So we're just waiting for the tractor to do its job. It should come to a stop all on its own anytime soon. If it doesn't, I'll jump in the cockpit and stop it. There it goes. So tractor has done its job. It's rotated the wheels ready for us to start steering left. Parking brake on, and we can sit here and go and get on with starting the engines. You'll see the tractor pull out from underneath us anytime soon. So let's see, there he goes. Is he going to pull away? Yeah, goodbye, thank you very much. Okay, so starting the engines will be familiar to anybody that's seen the Airbus before. We're going to go and turn the fuel pumps on. We're going to go and turn the APU bleed on. We're going to look down in the cockpit. I'm going to use my controls to do this, but you're watching the switches here. We're going to put the ignition to start, and we're going to advance the starter on number 2. And you will see instantly the engine display for engine number 2 is lit up, and you can see the N3 percentage is increasing. So if we go and look outside, you'll see that happening. So engine is spinning. When it gets to about 60%, it will stop the start sequence. You can hear things happening around the aircraft. So we'll just wait for that patiently. Oh, we should have had the beacon light on before we started the engines, by the way. It's my bad. Me busy talking and not following my own instructions, which is pretty par for the course, to be honest, isn't it? So you can see engine number 2 has come up, so we just need to advance the starter for engine number 1. Same deal, waiting for the percentages to come up. Now, I'm not an Airbus engineer. I don't know the difference yet between N3 and N2. Whether they still reflect the turbine axle and the turbofan axle, I'm not sure. Okay, so you can see you've got information appearing on the right hand side about the readiness of the aeroplane. So cabin ready is flashing. Obviously ignition is still going on. Now, when we got in, we didn't actually go through and do these switches, did we? So we need to go and put the mobile, smoking and emergency. That should have been on already. Again, early on I was so eager to show you different parts of the aeroplane, I skipped these switches in my checklist. So it's good for me to step back while we're waiting for things and just double check what I've done. Okay, so both engines are up and running. So the ignition system can come back to norm. We can go and turn off the APU bleed, and we can turn off the APU. Okay, and you will see the list of things on this display is getting lower and lower. So now we have done that, we're going to prepare to taxi. So inside the cockpit, we're going to turn on the auto brakes. We're going to go and arm the ground spoilers. And going to press the take. Yeah, you can see, look, the aircraft is pretty much ready to go now. So it's giving us the final checklist of things to do. So the blue things are things that need looking at. We haven't set flaps to takeoff position yet. So move the flap lever. Again, that's on my controls. So it takes the flaps a few moments to animate. Or sorry, not to animate, to travel. And you see the animation on the display there. And when they reach there, they will go green as well. There we go. And you've got the takeoff config test to do. So if we zoom out slightly, let's see if we've missed anything. If we press takeoff config, and it says normal. Okay, which is good. If it wasn't normal, it would light up and this screen would show you what is wrong. Yeah, so you need to look at this screen when you press takeoff config. One thing to do before we taxi, which I like to do, is to go into the serve page, go turn on the transponder, and that obviously gives us TCAS, and we can just leave that as is. Okay, obviously in the real world you'd be putting your squawk in, but that's at the point, you know, where Flight Radar 24 would start to see your aircraft. So we're ready to go. So Alt 7 will turn on my head tracking, and I'll take off the parking brake, and we'll go and turn the nose light to taxi, and go a small amount of positive thrust in the Airbus A350 at idle, just enough for us to be able to start moving. So I'm going to open the engines gently, and we'll go across to the other side of here, hey? See if we can scoot past this parked aeroplane. It's a bit of a squeeze. It's a big old aeroplane. It's only when you see it next to things like a 757 or an ATR over there, you realise just how big this thing is. It's colossal. So we're just squeaking out of Stansted with it. So I have turned off traffic, by the way, for the purposes of this demo, mostly because, again, I'm under the NDA, so I can't be letting multiplayer people even see that I'm flying it. Not today, anyway. Obviously, once the video goes out, it's free for everybody to see. But I didn't want to cause any ripples, shall we say. So again, I am absolutely floored by just how much is in this aeroplane and how much seems to work already. That they have got this far with such a complex aeroplane. And like I said, every day there has been pages and pages of issues discovered and fixed. And really kind of rabbit hole issues where if this, and this, then that. It's been absolutely crazy, and a testament to just how many people are leaning in so hard on this aeroplane to make it the best it can be, and it's already fantastic. So it's going to pull out onto the runway, and we'll stop ourselves from rolling just briefly, put the parking brake on. So what's the last few things we need to do? Landing lights need to go to on, and nose lights to take off or up, and strobe to on or up, and essentially we're now ready to go. So it's go time. So come off the parking brake, ease the throttles forwards, quite quiet in the cockpit. I think that's a testament of the A350. Obviously, it's a huge aeroplane, lots of soundproofing, and you're quite some distance from the engines compared to the smaller A320s where you're not very far away from them. So we can rotate gently. Again, I'm very light, remember, so I'll come off the ground very quickly. So gear up. Let's go and watch that happen. So let's go and engage the autopilot. Bring the throttles back to the climb detent. It's always a bit dodgy showing an outside view during takeoff. So we're going to leave the flaps at flaps 1 just for a moment until the airplane sorts itself out. So we'll go and kill the ground spoilers. So you can see a lot of the messages have now disappeared, and we can remove the flaps and let the aircraft accelerate. So obviously the auto throttle is following the flight profile. So if we go to the flight plan page, you'll see you've got the various constraints. We can display them now. This is a problem at the moment with this particular flight plan. It has a bit of a problem following it. So what we're going to do is choose to go from our current position straight to that waypoint, just to cut that problem out of it. But it just shows you do have very good control over that sort of thing happening. Okay, so we're following that route out. If we want to show constraints on here, we can. So I'm going to light up the constraints. We can increase the range. So we'll see that there's some 4,000 foot constraints. So we're not going to climb any further than 4,000 feet. Obviously, because I've turned the weather off for the purposes of this demonstration, we don't really have QNH to change, although it will complain until we go to standard mode, even though it's the same barometric pressure. But that won't happen until we go up through 6,000 feet. So gear us up now so the nose lights can come off. So I'm doing some procedural stuff. I'm not following all of the rules. I just want to give you a fair appraisal of operating the aeroplane and going through the motions and showing you what you get. I think it's fantastic. So you do get the operational flight plan obviously in here, and you can scroll through it while you're flying along. There's some nice shortcuts. So the obvious one is to go to summary and fuel to get the fuel loadout, get the planned fuel. It's very good though, isn't it? The symbology on the navigation display is awesome. So much information packed in. And seeing the climb profile as well, look, you can see that point at which we are released at Utava from the altitude restriction. And obviously as you increase the range on that, then that changes as well to show you your climb profile. It's very, very cool. Oh, it's a bit bright, isn't it, with that cloud? So, I should have covered this actually. It's got some nice features inside the cockpit. So we can pull window shades across if it's a bit bright outside. And they all everything's animated nicely. It's really, really lovely. So we can pull these ones down as well and give the pilot and the co-pilot an element of cover from the outside world so they can get on with flying the airplane. So we're in TA only mode on the TCAS. We can either get to that through the serve page, so we can change the mode obviously to go TARA. It's on standby, it says there. But anyway, we're going to take it into TARA mode, so it goes away. Let's zoom in a little bit more so you can see us come through the altitude restriction. You've also got a TCAS panel in the middle here, so you can force it to go above or below here as well. I'm not quite sure how that interacts with the serve page settings, so we could try that now actually. Look, we're on TARA at the moment. If I just say above, there we go. So it went from norm to above, but you'd have to come back in here to go back to norm. There's no easy way of going back to norm in here as far as I'm aware. But again, I'm learning at the same time you are. You will probably learn more about this airplane than I have just by actively flying it week to week. I mean, I'm very aware that quite often I will have a bit of a head start and I will learn the way the systems work. But in terms of operationally using it, you guys will far exceed what I know very quickly. Okay, we've started climbing. So it's actually started climbing a little bit early. It's coming through Utava. The transition altitude is 6,000 feet around here. So when we pass through 6,000, you'll see the QNH start flashing. So we'll just wait for that to happen. And on cue, is it going to do it? There it goes. It starts flashing, look. So we can go to standard barometric pressure on both sides of the cockpit. And the aeroplane is pretty much set to go now. So we've now, our next point of order is at 10,000 feet to turn the landing lights off. Should we move these shades out of the way? I mean, it's lovely that we can see them and we can see how they work, but I don't actually like using them too much. When we had a lot of glare earlier, it was useful, but also I wanted to show you them. It's over here, isn't it? Fastnet, there we go. So we're coming up through 8,500 feet, climbing out. So as I said, this aircraft isn't supposed to work properly in this version of Flight Simulator. So it's been built against the Beta, which is markedly evolved from the version we've all been using. You can see we're holding the climb profile absolutely perfectly. It's really great to see this, isn't it? So much information available to you in the cockpit, and all the systems do seem to work really nicely. Obviously you can manipulate the flight plan, so if you wanted to do a direct to or something, you can come and select and do, you saw me do a direct to immediately on the takeoff because we had a small bug in the guidance. I wouldn't be surprised if the small bug in the guidance is related to me not being able to use Navigraph yet. So it's probably a function of me using the old version of the simulator with this new version of the aeroplane. So something else while we're waiting. Oh, we've just come through 10,000 feet. So let's go and turn the landing lights off. And should we let the passengers up as well? So seatbelt signs off. Something else to show you, bit of fun here. The tables work in front of the pilot and the co-pilot. Also, you can unfurl the keyboard as well. I don't think it works. The mouse doesn't change. Oh, it does change for certain bits. That's probably the stuff that's underneath it. If we click back on it, we can then stow it away. Whoops, stow it back away. So yeah, that may have been picking up other things that were underneath the keyboard. But yeah, it just proves that it works and it's there, which obviously the real aircraft has. But I think the crews tend to use this keyboard and keypad. But I'm just bowled over by how good this aeroplane is immediately. For people that are, real Airbus fans, this is like nirvana, I imagine. Having a modern Airbus with all of the toys in the cockpit. And yeah, all of the displays, and they look pretty like the real thing, don't they? Something that's worth pointing out, you can use the Alt key and pop any of these out as well. So if you've got multiple monitors, you can play those games, with showing these to your heart's content on any of the screens. So they've done the same everywhere. It's very cool, isn't it? Not sure if it would do it with that one. Should we try it? Yeah, you can do it with everything. Very cool. So I did have a little look at this the other day. There's obviously a lot of functionality in here that's not fully obvious. So you can come in here, you can do score code. There's a menu, there's a data link router. I don't know what it does. So it'd be worth having some documentation around some of this. So they've gone to an insane level of detail modelling systems. You can animate things like, you know, moving the elbow rests out of the way. All of the knobs and switches work. I've not even played with the lighting at all yet. So yeah, your guess is as good as mine. You've got map light, console light. Yeah, I'm not going to go there today, because if it's anything like the other Airbuses, if we just lower ourselves down, yeah, you've got knobs underneath for the flood lighting. There's just a lot to take in, really. Where's the dome light overhead? I'm just wondering if we go and manipulate time in the simulator to get an idea of how it looks at night. So we've got wipers as well, so let's go and show those. So wipers, we can go, need to move up slightly, slow, and obviously they can go fast as well, and they park themselves automatically. It's very cool. So we're climbing out. There's not much for me to do other than show you around the cockpit and mess around with it, really. Should we have a look at it from outside? We did the landing lights, didn't we? Yeah. So let's go and have a look outside. It goes without saying, it's absolutely gorgeous. Easily one of the nicest looking tube liners in the simulator. It just looks stunning. And the closer you look, you see the wing wobbles, and obviously you're not wearing very stable air at the moment, so you're going to see hardly any movement from it. But it's just an amazing achievement in terms of simulation, to have all of this stuff simulated and it being smooth. No glitches graphically, no obvious polygons anywhere, stunning textures everywhere. It's just hard to fault any part of it. And as I said, it's obviously some of the professional crews have been testing this for Inibuilds, because some of the detail about the numbers and, you know, certain corners of the behaviours of the interfaces, you would have to be real crew to understand, or engineers, you know, to realise that something wasn't quite right. And they're picking up hundreds of these things every day and polishing it and polishing it. So hopefully by the time it arrives for everybody to play with, I mean, it's already phenomenal. Right, so we're climbing out to altitude. If I increase the range on the primary flight display here for the navigation, and we'll see, so if I look 80 miles downrange, 160 miles right downrange, you can see we're going to get to top of climb just after the Trent VOR. If we go and have a look at Navigraph, we can see where we are on the route. So then we'll be flying along and descending down in towards Edinburgh. So I'm going to pause recording for the moment, and I'll join you all as we begin descent towards Edinburgh, so it should be good fun. See you in a bit. I'm going to pause recording so you don't have to sit and watch the flight deck for the next half an hour, which will be really quite tedious. You want to see things happening. So I'll catch you in a minute. Okay, I'm back with you, and you can see we're about what we got on the range, 160 miles. We're about 80 miles out from top of descent, but I've turned the weather back on to make it a bit more interesting on descent, and to agree obviously with the flight plan and the performance calculations a bit more closely. So you can see we've got check destination data has appeared on the display, so we're going to clear that out, go to the performance page, go to approach, and we can see we got some boxes to fill out. So we're going to go and have a look at Navigraph and go and open up Edinburgh, open the airport, go to weather, and we can put in 240 degrees 3 knots for the wind. So 240. Enter. And 3 knots. Enter. So outside air temperature is going to be 6 degrees centigrade. And press enter. QNH will be 1002 hectopascals. So 1002. And press enter. So the rest of it is hyphens, so we don't have to fill it in, and you have to fill the boxes in as mandatory fields. So we're closing in rapidly. We're about 40 miles away now from top of descent. So we want to go and set our target for descent. So we're going to go and tell it to come down to 3,000 feet when it goes through top of descent. So there we go. And remember, if we push this towards the aeroplane, then that means do it, and obviously if you command it, it will start descending, and it will go at 1,000 feet a minute unless you tell it otherwise. So if we say, actually, can you hold where you are for the moment? So we'll just hold it to stop it descending too far. So what will happen there normally, if you fly along at, you can see the profile there is telling we should be at 36,000 feet because we haven't gone through top of descent yet. Okay. So notice that's going to affect though where the marker appears. It's disappeared for the moment. So that would have been based on us being at 36,000 feet, and we're not anymore. So if we wanted to go back up to that, we could. I'm just showing you some of the behaviours of the aeroplane really. So let's go back up to 36 and tell it, use managed mode to get that. So it's doing a climb. And it's coming back up to 36,000 feet. So it'll be interesting to me, this is me experimenting. Yeah, look, it's come back and showing us top of descent again as calculated. It's very cool, isn't it? So, if we come back into the flight plan page, we'll get to see the information. We've still got the constraints switched on, so we'll see some of the descent constraints. So what we'll do is change this to 3,000, but we won't press it yet, knowing that if we do it ahead of time, what it will do is descend at 1,000 feet a minute until it crosses the descent profile marker. Because obviously as soon as we started descending, the profile marker stayed at 36,000 feet, which is where we should be. So if you descend early, it will descend at a lesser rate until you hit the profile, and then it will start descending on the profile. So in other words, it will come in at a gradual angle. You can see it here, look. So what we would have done is come down at a gradual angle until we meet it, and then followed it down. Okay. But there's a few bits and pieces about the new symbology that I've not seen before that I don't quite understand. The square bracket being the most obvious, I guess. Okay, we've got a couple of moments before we have to start descending. Let's go and have a look outside. It is a monster, isn't it? It looks so fast as well. But obviously this thing can do the transatlantic route standing on its head. So this is a tiny flight for it to do for a few hours up to Scotland. It could fly backwards and forwards all day and not run out of fuel. Be fascinating to find out what its maximum landing weight is though. Because obviously we've taken off extremely light. You saw how quickly we came off the runway at Stansted. So let's bring that display down a bit so we can see we're coming down through Shap, sorry. So as the moment we come through top of descent, you'll see the descent marker start to descend, or the profile marker start to descend below us. So at the same moment, I'll wait for that to happen, so we'll be late on purpose so you get to see it, and then we'll chase it by selecting managed mode to get to 3000. So I'm just waiting for that little marker to come past the aeroplane, and then it will start to happen, because the aeroplane will have expected us to start descending. There it goes. So we're going to go managed mode, 3000 feet, go for it. So it will now descend to 3000 feet, but it will obey all of the constraints on the way automatically. So obviously, because we loaded the flight plan in from SimBrief, it was all in here. So you can see on the way down, any of the asterisks are constraints that it must follow. So we want to get to flight level 260 by INPIP. So we are behind schedule, yeah? So we're going to throw the spoilers out to help the aeroplane catch up. So I've put level 2 on the spoilers. So we go and have a look outside at that. You can see spoilers are open on the wings. And we're catching back up rapidly with the profile. And take the spoilers back off. And let the aeroplane stabilise. It'll take a while because obviously it's a big, several 100-ton lump hurtling through the sky. So it's not as agile as a fighter jet and correcting its path. It's pretty damn good at it though. So I have every intention of letting this aeroplane land itself to see how well it gets on. I suspect the simulator may crash in the final approach to Edinburgh. We will wait and see. If it does, it was expected because this aeroplane has been developed against Sim Update 1 and I don't have Sim Update 1 yet. So you can see we've actually gone below the profile now. So we'll see the aeroplane chasing it a little bit now and again, and that obviously could be down to weather changes or just because manoeuvring the aeroplane takes us a little way away from the profile sometimes. So now we are descending. I guess we ought to go and tell the passengers to sit down. So we'll go and put seatbelt signs on. We don't need landing lights until 10,000 feet. So we're just going to keep an eye on the profile, make sure we're coming down in a sensible manner. Well, let's go and have an actual look at Navigraph while we're on the way in. So we never put all the details in, did we? So we're coming in ILS runway 24. So it's going to be this sharp turn, which I think is interesting to leave in. In the real world, the gap between the end of the star and the beginning of the approach would be vectors, so air traffic control would tell you, and they'd probably vector you out to Lama to square it off or something. Or you would be told to come out and do a racetrack and then turn back in. So you go out over the Firth of Forth and come back into Edinburgh. But I'm going to let it fly direct in and see what it does. See how well it handles such a steep turn. So all I wanted to do here is come in and actually have a look at the chart. So we're just coming into INPIP, which we should be at 26,000 feet for. Yeah, we just dropped through, look. We're a little bit behind profile, but the airplane was coming back towards it. So the next target is in rev at 20,000 feet. And also we need to drop to 250 knots for ESCDO. So we should see all of that marked out on ESCDO 250 knots, in rev 20,000 feet or flight level 200. So it's all in there. It's very cool, isn't it? I've not tried weather radar yet. I don't know if it works. And to be honest, I wouldn't know how to switch it on yet. So it's over here, look, there's WXR, gain, wonder how that works. Yeah, I'm not going to play too much with it. So WX is over here, look. So you've got terrain as well. Can we show terrain? No, there's terrain. Okay, that works nicely. Very cool, isn't it? And let's try the weather radar again then. I'm not sure how long it might take to start displaying it. So we've got enough cloud around to hopefully show something with the real weather on. It might be good fun though with all the hills that we'll be seeing in a few minutes to show the terrain. So that is obviously going to start lighting up with hills. It's really lovely, isn't it, the way it does it? Very, very clever. So I'm a software developer, so seeing these kind of rendering techniques, this is the stuff that really fascinates me to see what they've done. So you can see we've just gone for it's gone throttle idle. It's trying to slow down. I'm going to help it. So I've thrown the spoilers out to get us down to 250 knots. It wasn't going to get there without our assistance, was it? So it isn't unusual when you see aircraft descending. I mean, I've flown a lot with work. It's not unusual to see the spoilers go out. Because typically airplanes stay as high and as fast as they can. Usually because they're always a few minutes late because some passenger either hasn't turned up or they have to take a bag off for whatever reason. And yeah, it disrupts the rest of the flight and you end up being 15 minutes late leaving the gate, and that obviously compounds, so they'll try and get it back if they can. And an easy way of getting that time back is to stay high and fast for as long as possible, which means descending on the spoilers instead. Okay, so we've just come down through our speed restrictions. I'm going to take the spoilers back off. We are now at 250 knots. The next target will be 230 knots and 7,000 feet at Tartan. We're at 18,000 feet at the moment. So can we maintain 250 and get down in time? That's the question. So we're not coming down fast enough. So I'm going to hold the spoilers out for longer. We are above the profile. While I've been busy talking, I wasn't keeping an eye on that. So it obviously needed the spoilers earlier. And you can actually see it, look, on this display. We're not coming down steeply enough. We're above the profile. Only a little bit. So it's easily recoverable. So you'll see the profile dots start to come back towards the middle. So while we are descending towards Edinburgh, you can see Edinburgh now and that final turn in. While we're descending, we'll have a quick look at the approach chart. So we want 108.9, 240 degrees on the ILS. So here comes the profile. So we just remember that 108.9 at the back of our mind for the moment. So obviously we're descending on the spoilers at the moment, so we're able to come in quite steeply. And look, we're almost back on it. Looking good. So I'll leave it on one, setting 1 on the spoilers at the moment. And that's good. So it's starting to go, it wants to go to 230 in a moment and 7,000 feet. So this is probably going to go again, isn't it? It's going to have another deceleration phase. Let's zoom in slightly on the display. So we get more information. You start to see the hills show up on the weather, on the terrain radar, because they aren't far away. Look. So I get castigated by my friends in Scotland for not knowing what hills we are travelling over. If we have a quick look on the Navigraph, we could switch it to the VFR chart, which, yeah, is this the Eildon Hills below us? I think it might be, actually. Yeah, I wish I knew more. I don't have time at the moment to worry about that. So we're wanting to come down to, it's going to jump to 230 in a moment, isn't it? So it's coming down through 10,000 feet very shortly. It needs to be at 250 obviously to come down through 10,000 feet, because you're not allowed to go faster than 250 knots below 10,000 feet, commercial traffic anyway. Let's go and get the landing lights on. Within 500 feet you're fine to go turn them on. Let's cross our fingers that the airplane won't complain. So you've got another warning, or a bell there, just to warn you that there's another change going on. We've got a master caution. Speed brake, it's just telling us the speed brakes are still extended, because we were helping the airplane. So the bell was the message, and it told us over there about the speed brakes, so we've solved that. Notice the terrain is not showing again. That's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if it's kind of adaptive and it only shows you that which, depending on descent rate, maybe. So we need to go and remind ourselves of the QNH, which was 1002, because we're going to come down through 6,000 feet in a moment, which is the, look at the windmills through the gap in the cloud there. Let's have a look outside briefly. And should we see those landing lights? So they're in the wing roots, look. Okay, it's trying to slow down, and it's going to go for 230 now, so I'm going to help it and throw the spoilers out again. And let's lower the range now to 20 miles on the navigation display. So you can see Edinburgh Airport is just coming into view, and then there we go, look, we've got the terrain showing up as well now, really quite neatly. And there we go with the speed. Whoa! Throttles are lagging a bit. We're going far too fast. I think this might be a bug we're experiencing here. I've taken the spoilers off, and I'm going to go selective speed mode, and yeah, I'm taking over. This might be a bug, it may be something I have caused in my operation of the aeroplane. We're just getting it back on track basically, so I'll get it back onto the target speed with the spoilers, with selected speed mode. I'm winding the spoilers back out again as we get closer. We're getting closer and closer, there we go. So spoilers off, let's go back to manage speed mode, and it seems a bit happier. So it may be something I caused there with that blip in the power. Okay, so there's a lot of information to process here, isn't there? So earlier on, 108.9, we were going to go and check, weren't we? So if we go and look in Navaid, we can see there's the ILS parameters. So yeah, course is 239 degrees, 108.9, looks good. So let's go back to flight plan. We can go and turn on the landing system displays, so that will give us the same frequency information. You also get the glide slope and the localizer showing up. You can do that both sides of the cockpit. So we've already got the landing lights on. It's a bit murky, isn't it? And you can see the Firth of Forth out ahead of us. At least you can on the terrain radar, you can just see the coast of it coming along here, look. So if we go and have a look outside, whoa, coming in over the edge of Edinburgh. It's a monster, isn't it? Okay, so looking at the speeds here, we can, at 230 knots, we could go for flaps 1, which I'm going to do. So should we go and watch that happen from outside? So you'll see the leading edge, and yeah, it's starting to extend, look. And the flaps have just come out a little bit at the back of the airfoils. So we're coming in towards this tight turn. Something else you will notice actually is if you come into the performance pages and look on descent, there's the option to activate approach mode. So we had a warning there about the speed, that's where we had that power blip. So it wants us, yeah, we've come down through 6,000 feet as well, obviously, so we need to go to the appropriate QNH for the destination, which was 1002. To make sure the altimeter is accurate. And there we go. So approaching 3,000 feet for the turn, we're already below the glide slope. So we'll make the turn. I'll show an outside view as we start to make that turn. There we go, look. What a view. So obviously we don't need spoilers anymore because the flaps have already kicked in. Okay, let's go and reduce the range down to 10 miles then on the navigation display. So we're going to let the aeroplane tidy itself up. We'll turn the terrain mode off so we've got a nice clean display. And you can see it's going to start the descent down towards the glide slope. So we could actually go for approach mode already. Now it's saying land 3 single, but only using one autopilot at the moment. We can, once we are configured, go for both autopilots, and it will say land 3 dual. And it should start behaving. So if you can see the runway directly out in front of us, so we're going to go flaps 2 and 3 now. We are slow enough to go flaps 4, so we're going full flaps, fully configured for landing, and gear down. Let's go and have a look at that happening. Very cool, isn't it? You can see Edinburgh out in front of us. So we are fully configured. Flaps are down. Gear is down. And we'll let it take itself in. If it freezes, it's down to this issue with the simulator. 2,500. With the pre-update 1 simulator at the moment. But I think we've seen enough to see just how impressive this aeroplane is, or how impressive it's going to be. I would imagine then they are going to wait with releasing it until Sim Update 1 has arrived. I'm not quite sure what would cause it to have such an issue if it freezes again. We'll soon find out. There's something odd about Edinburgh that causes it, or has caused it for me. So it's asking us to go and arm the ground spoilers, so we'll do as we're told. Obviously you could go for the brakes as well, but it's not mandating that on the eCam screen. So should we actually watch this from outside? See how good a job it does of landing. So you can see we're absolutely nailing it on the PAPI lights. There's the 4th bridge over there. Yeah, we'll come back to that external view in a moment. So we're just watching the systems to see how the aeroplane thinks it's doing. We're absolutely on the glide slope, on the localizer, on speed, fully configured. The status of the wheels has come up automatically on the eCam screen. So let's see what happens. I won't touch anything. Now this is about the point where it hit problems in the past, when it got near to finals. It may be that today's update has fixed whatever caused it. I'm just going to hold my breath. But regardless of if this hits the same issue, it's a phenomenal aeroplane.
500.
So I'm going to get ready to pull the throttles back to reverse and throw the spoilers out as soon as we touch the floor. There's a bit of turbulence going on. We've got a 25 knot headwind.
$300.
It's looking good.
$200.
Nope, it's locked up. But anyway, we were kind of predicting that. I know it's a shame that it happened, but everything we've seen up until this point said that this aeroplane, when it arrives in the simulator for sale, is going to be absolutely incredible. So I will obviously be returning to it repeatedly, because as I said at the start, based on what I've seen so far, even though it's still in development, it's by far the most impressive aircraft in the simulator so far. In terms of the breadth of simulation and the depth of simulation, it's stunning. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully we'll have a bit more luck next time, and I'll try some other airports to see if this is a local issue as well with Edinburgh, but I really don't know. It seems to be quite unique to this aircraft, this place at this moment in time. We'll wait and see. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you've enjoyed that so far, and obviously, as I said, I'll be showing more as time goes on. See you again soon.